tagliata, messa fuori, c'è Pirlo, ancora Pirlo di tacco, tiro, gol!
Hello and welcome to this AC Milan Talk Transfer Special. I'm your host Sumit Paul, and as always I'm joined by my good friend Jason Brand. Jace, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, mate, very well.
Good man. We've got another signing to talk about, Jace. It's been a few weeks, but here he is. Tonight's agenda, we'll be discussing the signing of Nikola Kalinic from Fiorentina and weighing up the arguments for and against as to whether or not he's a good addition. Meanwhile, we'll also be asking if Marco Fassone's suggestion that the team is now complete is true. But first, Jace, let's start with Kalinic. Give a few details and quotes from the big man himself, but according to La Gazzetta dello Sport, he signs on loan with an obligation to buy. Contract runs until 2021. Reports suggest that it's going to be 25 million euros in total, but it's broken down into 10 million euros now and 15 next summer. Kalinic had this to say about the move: "I'm very happy to be here. There's a new cycle here now and I hope everything goes well. All I can say is that I'll do my best to win. I'm definitely ready to sacrifice. I need to continue what I did with Fiorentina last year. I don't feel pressure. I'm just focused on how I have to play." Jace, let's kick things off then with the assessment of the signing itself. Just get your thoughts in terms of the pros. Give me some, positive angles to this signing. What does Kalinic bring to the team?
Brings a whole different dynamic. We talked about it before with his height, his tenacity as well. He's not afraid to do the dirty work, as it were. And I think, Andre Silva being the type of player that he is, having Kalinic in there to just be that extra option if needed. I think he's the perfect, well, maybe perfect's a strong word, but I think someone of his kind of build, his stature, and from what we've seen of him, at previous clubs, I think he's the right type of player to partner Silva or to be, a squad alternative to Silva.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I think there's loads of pros to this. I mean, I know the opinion split in terms of fans on Twitter I've been speaking to, but I'm all for it. I've always been for it, and I think it's a sensible signing. I think, as you mentioned there, he just ticks a lot of boxes. Don't expect him to come in and be, magically a prolific scorer. I think he'll chip in with a decent tally, but I'm more interested in what else he brings to the team. We sat on this podcast countless times last season moaning about Bacca, saying that if he's not scoring, what else does he bring to the team?
Yeah.
Well, Kalinic brings a lot to this team, whether it's his tireless running, pressing, whether it's, running the channels, whether it's, like you said, the aerial threat that he poses, his touch, his build-up play, his movement, everything, I think he's not a world-class by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying that, but I do believe he's a really, really sensible signing. And as you mentioned as well, it's just a nice it complements what Silva can do well. And I think we've got a decent signing for this season at least. So I'm all for it. Looking at it on the other side of the argument, though, there are people that say, for example, what does this mean for Cutrone? That pushes him down the pecking order. We were linked with the likes of Aubameyang, Belotti, Morata earlier in the summer, and we've ended up settling for Kalinic. Do you see that side of the argument? Are you slightly disappointed in that sense, or do you look at the numbers, the stats, crunch the stats for me and tell me, is it still for you as a decent signing?
I think it's a decent signing simply for the fact that, Aubameyang would have been great. And, he does have the height and stature to be an alternative to Silva or Cutrone. But the fact, is he going to be happy? He'll not being utilised week in, week out? No, he's not. Plus, he's going to cost a lot more than Kalinic. So it's not just about getting in, big names, although I can understand why fans, or as a fan, a lot of people would want to see, a lineup of Silva, Aubameyang and whoever else. But you need squad players, you need players that are going to work together as a team, and you need options off the bench. And I know I've said it before, but Kalinic definitely brings that. And, he said in his statement, what was it? He said, I need to continue what I did in Fiorentina, and he's definitely ready to sacrifice. He knows he's not going to start week in, week out.
Yeah.
I think, getting a player who's, I'm not going to say happy to get a check every week, because I don't think he is. I just think he realises that you know, he's not guaranteed a starting spot, and that if he does get his opportunity, he's going to have to work for it. You know, if you get an Aubameyang in, he's probably going to think, you know, I should walk into this team, and if he is out for a few games, maybe he starts throwing tantrums. He's not, you know, giving his full energy to the team, and that just messes up the dressing room. So I think getting in the Kalinic as, you know, the number 2, you've already invested in Silva as a superstar. You know, having him as the kind of backup singer, as it were, I think it works perfectly.
100%, couldn't agree more. Just before we kind of round things off with the rating for the signing, I mean, the theory is as well, you could also argue that, is there a rush for an Aubameyang? If it didn't work out, we're obviously there interested trying to get him. Dortmund were playing hardball. Why not wait 12 months? Don't we have the squad, the players, the Kalinic signing now to kind of, I wouldn't even say get through this season. I think that's understating it a little bit. But, you know, why can't we go for a big name signing, a marquee signing like Belotti next summer when we're back in the Champions League? And the line of progression there is there. We've built this really talented young squad on the whole, and, you know, the big names will come once we start challenging at the top of the table. Is that not a fair statement as well?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you're spot on there. Can't have too many superstars. Got to think about the purse strings. So come next year, like you say, if we're in the Champions League, then why not go back in and invest?
Looking at the stats then, I think he's got a fairly decent record from his days at Fiorentina. He's obviously been there for a couple of years. I know people remember him from his Blackburn days as well. That wasn't quite as impressive, but from what you've seen, the stats and stuff, I'm sure there's he's, again, like I said earlier, he's not a prolific goal scorer, but he knows how to find the back of the net, and combine that with the other elements to his game. It's an all-round solid acquisition, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think earlier on in the week, it might have been the last pod we did, we were talking about, you know, what we expect from Silva. And we said, you know, 15 Serie A goals would be a good return. 20 in all competitions would be happy with. And, you know, last season, playing for Fiorentina, Kalinic scored 15 in 33 league games and 5 in 7 Europa League games. So, you know, he's hit our target that we had for Silva. Plus, you know, he got 4 assists across those 2 competitions. So I think if he can do something similar to that this year, obviously he probably won't be getting the same amount of playing time that he did at Fiorentina, but, you know, a goal every 2 games is kind of appearing that he did last year in Serie A. If he can do that, you know, pop up with a goal every couple of appearances, I think he'll be doing great for him.
Yep, no, certainly hope so. Rating out of 10 then, Jace. I'll go first. I'm going to give this signing a 7 out of 10. I understand the arguments against it, why people are upset or unhappy about it. We did expect a big name to round off the summer transfer window. It's not quite the big name we were expecting, but a 7, decent enough signing. And yeah, just like I said, as I explained earlier, I just believe that it's an all-round sensible addition. I think he'll not only flourish himself, but he'll help others to flourish as well, the young players around him. And not to mention the fact that, you know, we've got a solid experience backbone or spine, if you like, to this team now with Bonucci, Biglia and Kalinic. You add the exciting young players around them. I think we've got a great balance there, and it stands us in good stead. So, fair assessment, 7 out of 10, or are you going lower or higher?
I think it's fair. I'm going to go a little bit higher. I think, you know, as a signing, I'm not, you know, rating Kalinic as a player, but I think as a signing for what we need at the minute, and for how much it's actually ended up costing, I think, you know, 8 out of 10. This is a really good signing in my opinion for, you know, all the reasons we just stated. You know, what he can bring to the team. He brings that experience as well, and he's not new to the league. You know, he scored 20 goals last season. So if we can bring a little bit of that, you know, I think we're definitely in good stead.
Saunds good to me. Right, before we move on to Twitter comments, we had loads, but I just want to give you the poll results. Question was, is Kalinic a good signing? 74% said yes, and 26% said no. Surprised with that, Jace? I personally kind of thought it would be a little bit more balanced. Judging from the reaction, I thought there was a few unhappy fans out there, but on this poll of ours specifically, seems to be everyone's pretty happy. The majority of them are. Yeah,
I was shocked actually. I thought, like you say, I thought it would be kind of, you know, 50-50 split, or probably slightly more in favour of it not being a good signing. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by the results. I think, a lot of people have realised, like we were saying, you can't just go out and buy a superstar every week. You need to think of the squad as a whole. So I think a lot of people are seeing that.
Yep, absolutely. Listen, I think he's going to silence his doubters. I understand the reservations for now, but as time progresses, as the season goes on, him, Andre Silva, Cutrone, I think between them, they're going to get enough goals to, make sure it's a successful season. And I think in time, his doubters will be silenced. So good luck to our latest recruit. Fingers crossed he can deliver, and I'm pretty confident he will. Right, moving on to the Twitter comments. At Gianluca Felosi, would have preferred another winger instead, and with the emergence of Cutrone, I just hope his arrival doesn't hinder his playing time too much. And to kind of combine that with Twitter username Zay Suso, nope, he's not happy with it. Let's give Cutrone a chance, and we have Andre Silva. Just focusing on Cutrone at the moment, we've obviously both been really impressed with him through pre-season and to start the season itself. How do you a negative impact on Cutrone in terms of his playing time and how much, how prominent a role that he would have had if Kalinic didn't arrive?
Possibly. I can see why a lot of people would think that. I personally believe that, Cutrone and Silva are more alike than Cutrone and Kalinic. So I think, we saw the game just gone, Silva came on and it was good, very similar to Cutrone. But if we're in a game where it's difficult to break down, having Kalinic there, it's a completely different option. So I think if Cutrone carries on to, scoring and bringing that same energy he brought his pre-season and he brought to the first league game, then I think he should be all right. And if I'm being perfectly honest, if he's in top form, I think he's going to be replacing Andre Silva as opposed to Kalinic. I think Kalinic is probably going to be there as backup. I think.
Completely agree. I think it's a point that you made on the weekend, I believe, in terms of people stating their claim to be in the starting lineup and being given the chance to stay there and continue to prove themselves. And I think we've seen enough for Cutrone to start this season that Montella is going to, or at the very least, it's going to be a very difficult decision to drop him. I think. Kalinic will have to start behind them, hopefully, and then work his way into the team. But I do have reservations in that sense. I do believe that it will have a negative impact and Cutrone may drop down the pecking order, but you need options at this stage. You can't go into a season, say Niang leaves, Bacca's already left, Lapadula's already left. You can't go into a season with Silva and Cutrone as your only two out-and-out strikers. You've got to have more, surely.
Yeah, well, I mean, Barini's there, but he's not really of that calibre, is he, at all? So
yeah, I think hopefully we don't stunt his progress, but I still believe Cutrone will have a big role to play this season. Anyway, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Twitter user Mirabelli Madness said, "Good to have someone who can be a focal point of the attack, has Serie A experience. Lastly, will fit very well in a 3-5-2 if necessary." And that kind of goes back to your point, doesn't it, Jason, in terms of adding a different dynamic to the attack. If you've got, say, a Kalinic and Silva up top, they can feed off each other and play off each other in a front two. And Montella's got another option there, then has need to kind of be more flexible and switch things up if he needs to.
Definitely. I mean, Maribel Madness, he should be doing this pod, mate. He's got the right word. I've been trying to allude to it, saying different option, but focal point, that sums it up perfectly. Like, he is, isn't he? He's that type of player. He's a target man. So, yeah, there's a good choice of words there. I think that sums it up. He is a focal point. I think it's great.
Yeah, no, well said. Moz at Mr. GL. I don't know if you remember a couple of weeks ago, Chase, we were talking about kit numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Moz is happy. He said, I like him, Kalinic, even more because he's got a normal kit number with the number 7. So, good shout. Definitely agree with that. We're both traditionalists, so happy to see that. Milanista Africa at Joe for Milan. Most definitely happy with the signing. He's a quality and big game striker. Scores in big games very often and he's an important player. I kind of hark back to the fact that he scored that hat-trick against Inter at San Siro, Jace, last season. He has got a big habit of scoring in big games and like I said, you've got that experience if Silva and Cutrone aren't delivering, particularly against the likes of Juve, Inter, Roma, Napoli, etc., etc. Bringing Kalinic, whether it be off the bench or starting those games, that's important as well, isn't it, to be able to deal with those big game pressures and deliver? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, it kind of goes back to your comment about him having the experience. of playing in this league. So yeah, definitely if he scores a hat-trick against Inter this year, I mean, the whole San Siro will be going crazy. Well, I say the whole, the Milan half definitely be going crazy. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Cannot wait. Fingers crossed for a repeat performance.
Yeah.
Adam Simone at A Simone03. Experience aside, Kalinic does so much more for Milan than score goals. He will take a lot of pressure off the younger forwards. Huge signing. Agreed. I think we've both echoed those points, and fingers crossed he does. We, like I said, we can't go into a season with just Silva and Cutrone, so having Kalinic there is going to be massively important. Twitter username Mirabelli. According to the finances involved in it, he's an excellent player. Look at these useless players with unbelievable prices. Just a word on that. I mean, in terms of, there's varying reports on how it's going to be broken down, but essentially, the total fee for most sort of outlets is 25 million euros.
Yeah.
Is that good value for money for you? Are you happy with that, or do you think that was a little bit overpriced for a 29-year-old?
No, I think it's good. Good value for money, considering he scored 20 goals last year. I mean, if you compare that to, I'm trying to think who went. Arnautovic went for £25 million, didn't he? He didn't score anywhere near 20 goals last season. So, yeah, you look at it like that, I think it's good. Definitely a good bit of business.
Yeah. I think you can always look at deals, can't you, and say, I wish we could have knocked a 5 million euros off that and it would have been a decent deal. But yeah, the Arnautovic shout is brilliant. Like, comparing what we're getting, a proven decent goal scorer in Serie A, then I think it's decent money. So I haven't got complaints with that myself personally, but I think that was one of the contentious parts of the deal. So may have a few people disagreeing with us.
Yeah, it's much better than the. I think originally we were talking about it possibly being 35 million, weren't we? So it's come down significantly in that sense if you look at it like that.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's true as well. So. No, good money, good stuff. Let's hope he can deliver on that fee anyway. Matt Robson, yes, it's a good signing. People think it's not as good because we thought we would get an Aubameyang or Belotti. In my opinion, if Kalinic had been objective from day one, people wouldn't be complaining. I think people just think that we've been let down without Mr. X. And also, like you just added, I love your podcast. So, Matt, thank you for listening. And
cheers, Matt.
I just want to give Matt a shout out actually because on his Twitter bio, I think he's 14 years old, and JC's he's worded that very methodically and very well. Because I think at 14, I was probably effing and blinding at every player left, right, and centre. So shout out.
Yeah, I remember you at 14, mate. You definitely were.
Grown up since then, mate. I've come a long way. Good point there, though. To be fair. Just in the terms of, like I mentioned earlier, the expectation levels of being linked with a Belotti, it does feel like a come down to Kalinic, doesn't it? For some people, I guess, but you got to just take it as it is for what it is, don't you? You've got Kalinic, like you said, guy with Serie A experience, decent goal scoring record, fits Montella's ideas perfectly. So you've got to look at the positives, haven't you, for this stage, rather than just continue to focus on the negative.
Yeah, definitely. I think. As well, interesting. Would you place any blame on Fassone for coming out with the Mr. X stuff?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I didn't particularly like that because it's something that Galliani did a few years ago as well, and it was just a big build up to nothing in the end. And it does kind of build up hopes, doesn't it, for the supporters? You're like, oh, who is this Mr. X? Is it going to be one of these big names? But yeah, I don't think that was probably one of the less wise things that he did. But I mean, by the sounds of it, Aubameyang and Belotti were genuine targets, so I'm assuming that one of them may well have been Mr. X, but yeah, it's a little bit disappointing, isn't it? I guess when you set the bar that high.
Yeah, that is a great point. It is a good way to look at it. Like you say, like Matt says, I think if you're trying to get candidates, you get him, you're happy. Yeah. But if you think you're getting a world class superstar, you are going to be naturally disappointed. But
for the time being, just give him a few weeks and be banging those goals in.
Wait till he bags that Milan hat trick against Inter.
Absolutely. Imagine the scenes on that. That'd be brilliant. All right, Jace, this comment made me chuckle. I'm going to try and read it without laughing, but it's our good old mate at VA Jack Sparrow. Again, I absolutely love his passion and his opinions. Just read it out to you. Yeah. If he plays from the bench in the Europa League, fine, but will never win anything great like the Champions League or Serie A. You need top strikers for that. I can't believe that they pulled the Galliani at the end. This is not the Mr. X we deserve or was promised. This is absolute cancer, Samit and Jace. Don't give me that diplomatic, he'll score 15 goals. Others will chip in. Even my grandma will score 15 goals with Suso, Bonaventura, Hakan, Conti, Rodriguez around her. Totally disappointed. Expected Belotti as a cherry on top. Kind of builds on the point that we were just discussing, and I can't help but laugh at the grandma bit, but that's excellent. But I do understand that argument. I'm not going to say no. That's nonsense. I genuinely understand the point that he's making there. But what do you think, Jason? I mean, I think, like I said, we're building towards that. I don't really see us going all out and buying the big names. We're far from finished. I believe that the big names are still to come. We're back in the Champions League next year. I believe Kalinic will be influential in getting us back into that top four. And then we build and buy the Belotti to make, VA Jack Sparrow and among, others as well, happy with those cherries on top and big name signings.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great point by VA Jack Sparrow. But yeah, I agree with you. I think, when you've brought 10 players, you can't then go and drop 70 million Belotti. I think it's, unless you're a PSG or something like that, you don't have that type of money. So to have a player in, like you say, that can be there to help fire us into the Champions League and get us on that next level, it's the right signing for now. I think, like you said, next year, bring on the Aubameyangs, bring on the Belottis, but right now, I think he will score 15, and it may not be completely down to him. It may be down to the good work of Suso, Bonaventura and the likes, but if he's there to get on the end of them, can we really blame him? Like, that's what he's been brought in to do, to be the focal point, and to assist Milan in getting back into the Champions League.
No, VA Jack Sparrow, I understand where you're coming from, but when Kalinic ends the season with 35 goals in Serie A, we'll remember your comments next summer. We shall see. Jerry McKnight said, I think we need to wait and see on Kalinic. His time in the Premier League says no, that he's not a good signing, but his stint with Fiorentina was productive. I think he's a question mark at this stage. Fair point. And just to end things off, Mitchell or Succi, good signing to end the summer. I think there may be a chance that all the strikers, Silva, Kalinic, Cutrone, all get double-digit hauls. That's what the point we're trying to make, isn't it? I mean, Jace, I know, again, like others will disagree, but you get 15 from each of those three, interchange, whether it's at the same time, whether it's replacing each other, rotating. You get those guys chipping in with 10 to 15. You get your midfield players chipping in with 10 to 15. You mentioned it a few weeks ago about how it makes a team more dangerous having, not one focal point up top that everyone focuses on and, others struggle around him. It's more dynamic, it's more dangerous from all angles. That's got to be a positive thing as well, no?
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, it's that option to go to, because your striker's not going to be on top form week in, week out. So, if they're having a bad game, it's just good to have someone who has got 10 to 15 goals in them to put off the bench and just say, go out there, get us a winner or get us that equaliser that we need. So having a good roster of attackers, of goal-scoring attackers, I think is very important. And, Kalinic just adds to that.
Yep, certainly does. So yeah, let's fingers crossed all three of them can flourish next season, and good times ahead. Just to kind of wrap things up, I want to focus on some comments that Fassone made. This is what he had to say after Kalinic was unveiled. With Nikola, I think we've completed the team. We've made 11 signings this year, and this one has been a long and difficult story. He's the player we wanted with experience and quality. We've always talked about a mix and about completing the spine that's also made up of Bonucci and Biglia. Nikola completes the squad. Finally, we've done it, and we're proud he's a new Milan player. Let's just run through the list of all 11 players then, Jay. So we've got Antonio Donnarumma, Andrea Conti, Matteo Musacchio, Leonardo Bonucci, Ricardo Rodriguez, Kessie, Biglia, Hakan, Borini, Silva and Kalinic now. So that's 11 new signings. Obviously, many have gone out the door as well to kind of balance things. But say the window was shutting tonight and it wasn't next week. There was no more to be done. Do you think we're complete? Is Fassone right? Is that job done now for us until January, if needs be, or until next summer? Or do you still think there's questions that need to be addressed?
I think those 11 players added to what we've already had, and looking at the dead wood that we got rid of, I think that's a great squad, really. Pretty complete, it seems to me, and I'll be very surprised unless we suffer some pretty heavy injuries. Very surprised if we go back in January. I think we should be good now till next summer, like you say, back in the Champions League, and then we'll have to reassess certain positions and look into investing in slightly better quality. But I think for now, where we're at and where we want to be, I think it's a perfect team.
100%. I've got no sort of if, like I said, if the window's shut tonight, I genuinely wouldn't. I'd be content. I'd be happy. I think there are still arguments. Yes, maybe we needed another left winger, another wide player just to kind of add a little bit of depth in that position. Midfield, perhaps, with Biglia's injury record. There are question marks there, but for me, I think we've got a well-rounded squad now, and yeah, I'm happy. I think the only way that things will change, that Fassone may be lying, is that if more players leave, which I expect them to do. Niang still got a question mark over him. Paletta, Gomez, Sosa, all linked with exits. If they do leave, then yes, I do believe we do need to dip back into the market and bring in more depth. But yeah, I think we've got enough to cover injuries. Like I said, unless there's a massive crisis, which then we might have a problem. But I think we're covered in all bases, and we've got plenty of quality there on show. So
yeah.
For me,
would you keep Niang now as a depth player?
Never keep Niang, Jace. I don't want him. I don't want him for starter depth. Nothing. I understand the argument for it, yes, and I don't know what if you think yes we should, then I'll get your take in a second. But if Spartak Moscow, the rumours are true that they're willing to put 23 odd million euros on the table, then let's just get him out the door and be done with it. I don't think particularly with that kind of money on the table, I think it's time to move on and make that money and go out and buy another player. So no, I don't want Niang for depth in short. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I would have kept him. I think, his appearances pre-season, he kind of showed a different level of hunger. And I think, all the signings have kind of made him look at the team and think, I really want to be part of this. I don't want to be shipped out now that we've got all these players in. But your point there is great. I think if someone is willing to pay that type of money, then yeah, get rid of him. I think that pays for Kalinic pretty much, doesn't it? And you can either promote a young player up or like you say, go out and kind of find another Barini, a £5 million bargain or €5 million, bargain, and just have him as a backup player.
No, true. Jesse, it's a false sense of security Niang lulls you into.
He does it.
He wants you to believe that he's turned the corner and he's ready to perform for us. But give him 2 weeks, I reckon, if he did stay, and you'll be screaming for him, Watford, to come and rescue us with another loan deal. So no, get him out, sell him. Right, Jace, good stuff. Anything else you'd like to add before we move on, or is there anything? Have we missed anything?
No. I think we covered it all. I'm just hoping that Kalinic can be Milan's Sylvain Wiltord, not a big name, as it were, but Sylvain popped up with some important goals in his career. As an Arsenal fan, I'm well aware, and hopefully, as a Milan fan, I get to see Kalinic do the same. So, yeah, just hoping he has a good season.
That's a great little comparison. I like that one. Good man. That's good. Right, so thanks to everyone for listening. Just like to say, we're overwhelmed with the response to the player ratings at the weekend. So we hope you do stick with us moving forward, and we'll be churning out plenty more content over the season. To those listening on SoundCloud or iTunes, subscribe on YouTube for more content. AC Milan Talk, you find us on there. As I said, player ratings, previews, all that good stuff. We'll be producing much more content on there, so give us a follow on that. Jace, I think that wraps us up for tonight. So until next time, nothing else but to say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye to the people.